And welcome back into another week of Every Day We're Covering. Chris Parks, SJ Munoz with you here once again to talk some college football and give you some awesome picks as we did last week. We deliver. That's what we do on this program. We deliver to you. We've had a couple of really good ones, and it was another good week for us, SJ.
We almost might be need to change the name to the mailman. We're getting pretty consistent here, but no, that's the whole goal. Obviously, that's you're always going to take those L's, but we want the W's to be in more amount, more of a quantity over quality type deal with us. So yeah, we're gonna try to keep it rolling this week. We got a big slate of games, a lot of rivalries this ending the season here last week for most teams. So should be a fun thing, but we gotta start off with the good info first, the stuff that people really want to know, and that's what
Exactly.
we're sipping on.
That's exactly right. Everybody wants to know what we're having as a beverage. And I had a couple of these here over the weekend at the tailgate in Ames. It was kind of a random one I stumbled upon because I had stopped somewhere kind of looking for something else because, it's one of those deals where you kind of know, oh, yeah, this store usually has this thing that I look for.
Right.
And so I had stopped and I didn't find what I was looking for, but I stumbled across this and I'm like, I'm going to give it a shot. The fine folks at the Confluence Brewing Company in Des Moines, which I shouted out before on different beers, but I like a lot of their stuff. But they have one that they normally roll out called Blue Corn Lager, which is a decent beer. Just kind of a typical lager. But this one is the Blue Corn Lager con chiles, and it's got a little nice spice running down the gullet at the end of it. So yeah, I kind of got a kick out of it. It's pretty decent.
Yeah, it's always nice as long as it's done properly, and sounds like that's the case. Ever since they've kind of moved their distribution to this area in the Kansas City area, Yingling's kind of been my go-to, just like you're talking the everyday lager. And ever since I started seeing it in the stores, I was kind of counting down the days till that Hershey chocolate porter hit the shelves. It took a little bit longer than the places out east, which makes sense because that's where it's
Yeah.
where it's brewed and all that stuff. Obviously, they're going to get first dibs, but I got my hands on it, and I'll say it's a pretty solid pour there. Not much to complain about. Maybe I wouldn't mind a little higher ABV. I think we're looking at a 4.7. But either way, it's still a good drink, and I wasn't let down. Sometimes you build those things up, especially when it comes to stuff that you may not be able to get access to, and you hear about it. People that live a certain place, you got friends across the country, or people that visit certain places, and you kind of just say, "Oh, this is the best thing I ever had, best thing I ever had," and then you try it, and you're like, "Eh." And a lot of that is just because of the hype. It's hard to live up to that hype, but I'll say it's a pretty solid beer. I'd definitely give it, eight, maybe even a 9 out of 10, 8 or so out of 10. That's pretty good.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's one of those. It has a little lore behind it. Everybody wants to try to track that stuff down. I have not had one of those myself, so I'll have to grab one of those sometime from
See
you.
if I can. Speaking of mail, man, I'll try to kick one of these in the mailbox for you and shoot it up north. See if it lands in your hands there.
All right, that'd be awesome. One thing that I had my wife try this beer too, and she said, I thought it was kind of interesting. A lot of times when you have something that's got a little spice to it or whatever, you kind of get that mouth feel burn. And that's
Oh
not
yeah,
necessarily the case with this one. It's more so kind of like going down and like in the chest, and I
just
kind of
warms you
like
up a
that.
little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of like almost that booze kick. It's kind of interesting. So
Especially the way kind of looks like we're getting turned into the actual season. Seems like we might be done with those nice days. So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
a good time of year to get a little spice in your life.
Exactly. I will say that I am very thankful for the way that the weather has played out this college football season. I usually try to make treks to all the Iowa State home games if I can. I did do that. I did accomplish that feat this year, and to be there sitting half the day in shorts with some nice weather and a calm breeze felt pretty darn good. I'm very thankful we didn't have any of those typical upper north bitter chills that we get there in Ames. It was a nice day to be out there and enjoy the day, and a great day for football. So I think we're all pretty thankful that that's the way it's been this season for most folks.
Yeah, I didn't get to a college game, but I was at a local area playoff game here in Missouri, and I actually overdressed. I was peeling off the layers, which that's a good problem to have. I'll take that. That's no problem with me. I'd rather be hot than cold any day of the week. So but it's a night. It felt kind of weird because you look at your phone and it says November whatever, and it was a good 65 degrees, which I'm not complaining. It was just kind of threw you off, and I definitely overdressed, but it's always easy to ditch a hoodie or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah, by the end of the night, it was awfully cold, but that's the way that goes when the sun goes down. We did have some pretty darn good picks, as we told you here at the outset. We did really well last week. There were a lot of games out there that were close. I mean, there were some close calls for some big teams, especially early in the day. It seemed like some of the big favorites or teams that are kind of angling for big spots in their conference had some close calls early on, but a lot of them were able to overcome and pick up wins. There weren't a bevy of upsets or anything like that. But let's run through our picks here for you first. We started off the week, we had Toledo. They were giving 10 over Bowling Green. They came back and won the game. They were down big. They came back and won the game, but they did not cover the 10. It was 32-31 was the final there as they pick up the victory. So that was a little bit disappointing. Ohio did cover the 8 points that they were giving to Central Michigan. They won 34-20. We talked about them both on the line and the money line, so we were good both ways there. UTSA needed to cover 16. They did it, 49-21 over South Florida, so that was another nice win for us there during the week. The one that let us down that night was the Colorado-Washington State game. We were looking for the under there, under 63.5, and it ended up getting to 70, so just enough. I mean, I was watching some of it kind of flipping back and forth between that one and UTSA, and the way the game started, I was like, oh, man, they're going to blow past this. There's like 30 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, it was hope was lost quickly, and that, I mean, you always hold out that, who knows what can happen. But yeah, you watch, score watching a little bit, or even if you had it on, just, you see 7-14 there within the first 4 or 5 minutes of the game, and you're thinking, oh crap, here we go. But I was expecting Washington State to score a lot. I was just surprised that they scored that much. And then I didn't think Colorado would put up more than 7 to 10 points. Obviously that was wrong too. But so I mean, that was a little bit. It was more about how much they scored. I was thinking, a 42-7 type of win. That would have been well under. But that's why they play the games.
Yeah, well, and then Colorado just got stuck on that mark. They got to 14 pretty early, and then they didn't score again. So, yeah, it was just Wazoo getting that one extra score that we didn't need them to there to ruin that bad boy. But then we moved on to Saturday, and here's where things got fun. The first one was a little bit disappointing, but this was a wild game. You kind of had pegged this one as this could be the upset kind of the week with Louisville taking on Miami, and it turned out to be a really good game. Louisville needed some kind of late heroics to get the win. They got the lead and then were able to hang on because Miami kind of shot themselves in the foot a couple of opportunities late. But 38-31 was the final. Miami was getting a point and a half and just could not quite do it for us there.
Yeah, there was, you can lead them to water, but you can't teach them to drink or whatever, however it goes. I mean, we told them the setup was there, everything was. They even had a lead for a good chunk of the game, and I believe at one point it might have been a double-digit lead. I have to go back and check that, but I believe they were up by at least 10. So they kind of let it slip away a little bit, but I mean, Louisville's where they are for a reason. They've only been beaten once this season, so there's probably a reason for that. But it was the ingredients were all there. Just Miami couldn't get over that hump, and from my viewpoint, at least a little bit, maybe some questionable or not the best play calling at the end of the game, but that's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm. My West Virginia Mountaineers came through for me once again. They were only laying 6.5, and they won big, 42-21 over Cincinnati. That started well. Once that game started, and I saw some scores piling in, I was like, all right, I'm feeling good about this one. And then same story. Well, same story as Georgia always does. They always let the other team score first, and then they always beat them down after that. And it turned into a 38-10 win over Tennessee, easily covering the 10 that we were looking for. So Dogs continue to roll. Again, my perplexity of why NC State is hated by the books came through well against Virginia Tech. It did get closer towards the end of the game than I thought it was going to be, but they were controlling there for quite a bit of it. They were getting 3 points, and they win it 35-28, so another good win for the Wolfpack. UCLA, you had them getting 6 against USC, and they took care of business. They win it 38-30 the final, and led for kind of pretty much throughout the game. They were in control, it seemed like, there from the outset. That's a pretty good win there for a Bruin program, which is another topic we'll touch on here in a minute, that had a coach that maybe is kind of on the hot seat, and Chip Kelly may have saved himself there.
Yeah, that was one of those I believe I mentioned, if not, it was in my head to later in the week even take a chance on that money line, but then you saw the news come out, I believe it was Thursday, maybe even Friday, that basically Chip Kelly was, a dead man walking, done deal, he's gone. Obviously refuted that story within, probably 24 hours, 36 hours after it came out. But that made me a little nervous there because you don't exactly, it's going to go one way or the other. They were going to either, kind of rally around the coach or, play their butts off for him. And they did that and, end up getting the win against their, crosstown rival there. But it could have went the other way, and they could have just got mollywopped. So luckily for us, it didn't happen. But I kind of a little upset that news came out. Or I might have did a little bit on a little money line action, and because were getting at least plus 200 anywhere I was looking.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that was definitely a good win for them for sure. The last game that we had there, Florida Missouri, we were looking for them to get over 59.5, and they just got there. 64 points was the final total, and Missouri picked up a nice win with a late field goal, so turned into a really good game. But they got it done. A lot of points as we kind of expected, and Mizzou continues to roll, put themselves in a great position there in the SEC.
There's a little matter of timing on that as well. I looked later in the week just to see what it'd be like, and it was down to 57. Excuse me. So like that, we needed a few extra points, but we got them. But it was it was a little bit hairy there than it needed to be because that line dropped. I don't know if there was an injury or something came up, some news, something got back to the books, and they lowered that a little bit, but. We still covered.
Yeah. Well, and the topic that we kind of alluded to, we were going to touch on a little bit, this time of year, it always turns into two things. Teams are angling to either get themselves into bowl position, into conference championship position, or some of them obviously with college football playoff aspirations. And then there's other teams that are trying to figure out who the heck's going to coach this team the next year, and they're kicking people out the door. And we've had quite a few of those so far that have come down the pike here. And one of course, the biggest one that already came out, and this was actually probably, I think, right after we had recorded last week with the Texas A&M, Jimbo Fisher out. He's going to pay him a very hefty amount of money to not coach college football, and now they're going on the hunt for who knows. It's a program that they're going to throw money, obviously, at whatever it takes at anybody, and that they're probably kind of looking for a splash type name. So that search is going to be an interesting one to follow.
I mean, obviously they were looking for some type of title, and he hasn't done that in the time he's been there. But I mean, you question the timing of it. Seems like not to nobody's going to go out there and say Jimbo was gonna. Next year, who's going to have him in the hunt, right up there with Georgia and Alabama, anything like that. But at the same time, it's just one of those things where it seems like it's like a vicious cycle or whatever you want to call it. Just they keep kind of doing the same thing, just hoping for like a some kind of change overnight, or just throw money at whoever and think it's just going to happen like that. And by now they got to be to the point you would think if they're doing something now, maybe they're going to try something different and maybe get an up and coming type guy, but. Knowing their history and what they've done, they're probably just going to, go after, Urban Meyer or Bob Stoops or something crazy like that and just see if they can, throw some money at them to, lure them back to the game. Nothing would surprise you unless it was like some type of heady move. That might be the only thing that would be surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's some guys out there for that position that maybe make some sense, like, Mike Elko at Duke, who's turned them around. He has some connections to Texas A&M. I guess he coached there as an assistant before, so that would be somebody that would make sense. Now, that's probably not what the boosters are going to want at A&M. They want a big name, so it's just maybe the logic doesn't follow sometimes.
Yeah, just speaking to that logic, I mean, the first thing I hear, and obviously this is, coming from somewhere, it's not just random, but Lions coach Dan Campbell, obviously at A&M, an alum and all that, but nobody's leaving an NFL head coaching job, especially in the situation he's in right now, where he's overachieving and then some. He can name his price right now, and Detroit's not letting him get away. So it would make no sense to come back. But I mean, from all indications, and it's early in the process, that's kind of the type that they're zeroing in on, and it's they're going to go down along the same. They're going to die on that hill, I guess, for an easy way to put it. It's just they see no other way, and not one to throw stones because obviously School I Follow has had plenty of issues when it comes to hiring, but I think Texas A&M is still in a league of its own when it comes to these type of decisions.
Yeah, no doubt. And I saw this, and I don't know if I had shared this with you already, but Jimbo Fisher obviously is making a boatload of money to just go live on an island or whatever he wants to do. But I saw this tweet the other day that his first job was offensive coordinator at Samford back in 1991-92. He had a $20,000 salary that year. Now he is going to be paid $26,301 per day over the next 8 years to not coach at Texas A&M. Oh my, how your world changes. And
And he made some decent money when he left Florida, for Florida State as well in
yeah,
between there, obviously, and some other. So it's just like, yeah, it's I mean, the number. It's basically it's kind of seems so unrealistic. The numbers you throw around, anyways, it's not even money. It's just a number. But it's crazy when you kind of put that perspective on it and kind of compare the two. I mean, obviously, it's a different position. Times change, but still, that's I mean, it's not in a crazy amount of time that you've increased your salary by that much. And other than that, championship season. What else? It's not.
yeah.
There's not a lot to. There's not. It's not like he's had a couple dynasties here at 3 or 4 different locations. He had Jameis Winston for a year, and that was about it. As far as looking at the big picture and the championship
Hmm.
type of level of coaching, that you would think that's the type of level of coaching that would require that type of salary.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm guessing Jameis is going to get a nice package or a nice note in the mail, maybe thanking him for all of his help. There's a larger discussion. I don't really want to get into it now. This is something we can definitely dive into if we off season time. But it kind of points to that broader scope of we have so many arguments about players getting paid or players making money, and then there's the talk of, well, what are we going to do if all these guys do, and is there enough money to go around? And then you see what these coaches make, and it's like, yeah, we could probably figure this out
Right.
one way or
Yeah.
another.
Yeah, it's not an easy job, obviously, when it comes to like the stress and that type of
Yeah.
work is a lot of pressure on you. But at the same time, it's let's go ahead and get to the people that are actually competing in the sport and on the field and earning the wins and losses. Let's go ahead and get them a little bit of a kickback. And if they blow through all their money, they blow through all the money. Like I mean, like
Yeah.
do we want to start counting your nickels too? Like I mean, it just seems to me it's like obviously, like you said, we don't want to get too deep into it, but it's like they're worried about what money you're getting paid, but why are they not worried about why kind of just worry about yourself, basically, to
Yeah.
say it a simple way without getting too deep in the weeds, because there's a couple of things I'd like to say, but we'll talk about it later. But either way, it's just like I mean, what do you care? They're making all this money for your school and all that, and it's not your money either. It's the same type of thing when it's a coach gets fired or hired, and the fan base is all worried about either it's too much, not enough, all that thing, and it's not your money to begin with. I understand you support the team and all that, but if someone's going to give me $40 million, I'm not going to say, well, a few people I know don't think I should make that much, so I'll go ahead and turn it down. I mean, whatever the market's willing to pay, you take that money and run, because it may never come at you again.
Yeah, yep, and we see that all the time in other professional avenues of athletics. So, definitely an interesting topic. We can dive into that more at other times. But a couple of the other jobs that I know are vacant now. Mississippi State, right after that game, interesting. The two head coaches that played in that game, and that's another thing. Jimbo Fisher won his last game 51-10, and then was fired. So that's always interesting. And then the guy who lost the game gets fired, and then a couple days after that. And then Dino Babers at Syracuse has been fired now here today as well. That news came out. I'm sure there's a few more that I'm not, got on my list here. But it's just that time of year. Everybody wants that jump on the next season. If you got a guy that's sitting there that's not really, is not going to be there in the future, you want recruits, you want kids to know, hey, we're making a change. We, kind of give them hope that things are going to turn around for them, perhaps, or just to, I mean, part of it's a courtesy, really. I mean, I know the schools don't think that way and probably don't care, but, it's a courtesy to them, too, to know, hey, this guy's not going to be here anymore. If you really want to go somewhere else, now's the time to start thinking about doing that. So, and obviously, it's much easier for them to do that now, so that's nice. But it's just schools want to make those changes now and get a jump start on it, and I understand that.
Well, it can be good and bad too, depending on how you utilize it. But with the way the transferring is this in this era of college football, it's you can turn a program around rather quickly. We've seen people do it at numerous locations, and not just for 4 games as somebody did this year. We've seen people do it for at least a full season, and even then some. So I mean, that's the good part of it. I guess you want to be positive. There's room. things are in place for you to make a change, maybe even quicker than in the history of the sport.
Yeah, well, and that's also interesting, I guess, to point out from a candidate's perspective. Like guys looking
Mhm.
for college jobs, that might have been in the past, a pretty tough hindrance for some of these schools that traditionally didn't have success, or other factors that kind of weigh on them a little bit. Not that attractive of a job. Well, now that it's a lot easier to go out and get kids, as long as you're doing your part, as you're charismatic, you can go recruit guys and bring them in. Like you said, you can change a team around in 1 year, especially if it's a school that has enough resources, to get it done. I can think of a ton of kind of lower tier teams in Power Five conferences that could make that happen.
When we talked about it, kind of maybe how some people are having a little bit of a pushback too, but when you look at the TV deals and the streaming services on top of that, any team basically in the country anymore can at least half of their games, if not more, you have access to watch them. So
Hmm.
maybe you're not maybe traveling across country or halfway across the country, but your family back home may still be able to watch a majority of your games, thanks to these TV deals, where we know that's another story of mounds of money just laying
Hmm.
around. But it is, it's a benefit that way too, for maybe some access and just some a little bit more of a reach for some of the smaller schools where they didn't have that 10, 15 years ago.
Hmm. I think one thing that I found very funny lately is I've heard from like a number of people that have like been on the complaining wagon of, well, yeah, what's going on with this? My team's only on the Peacock this week or whatever. And like, what is the Peacock? And it's like, this is what we signed up for, people. You wanted money. You wanted your schools to make a boatload of cash and have this great media deal. You didn't realize that part of that contract is going to be on some of these streaming platforms that you don't like. And that's just the way it is. You've entered that world.
Well, and even it's more just like kind of a thing like we talked about before. It's more just something that it's different news. So you want to complain about it, but everybody eventually jumps on board if you really want to watch your team. And the price issue for the most part, I think most of the streaming services are reasonably priced. It's nothing
Hmm.
outrageous. So yeah, it's I mean I love watching as many games as possible. I know you feel the same way. So
Hmm.
I'm glad to find whatever app or download it. And there's plenty of trial offers. Get
Yeah.
with your buddies, share it. You pay for this app, I pay for this app, and
Hmm.
whatever. Do what you got to do. But I mean, I'm on the yay side for this. I definitely think it's a good thing to have any more access than you can. It's a good thing in my book.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, yeah, you look at it from that other side, how many games, especially when it comes like, there's already been 3 college basketball games to the team that I follow that I pretty much guarantee I would not have had access to 10 years ago. It just wouldn't have been on anywhere. So that factor is nice, that there is more access available if you're willing to go that extra mile to make it happen.
And
Uh,
just for the record, a last comment on that, I did listen to a game on the radio last week that wasn't on any streaming app that I had
mhm.
access to at that time because I was traveling. So I'll do it. Like I'm putting my money where my mouth is.
Hmm.
I'll do what I got to do. If it's a game I care about, I'll find a way to indulge.
Yeah, and there's some unique things. The media world's adapting. One thing that we did on the way up, I was driving to Ames to go to tailgate and go to the game this Saturday. We turned on the Varsity Network app, which is the Leaderfield affiliated app now for all the different radio feeds. They have like a little college football blitz show that they do on the weekend. So they'll jump around to different games and give you highlights. Hey, here's this team, moving in, or here's this game that's possibly an upset. And so, yeah, there's all kinds of different ways to do different things to catch people's attention. And I think we're seeing more and more of that innovation just kind of come around, and it's kind of fun to watch that sometimes too. One thing I did want to mention that I'm a little bit perturbed by here this past week, and mainly it's just a local issue, I think, for the most part. But as I mentioned, I went to the game Saturday in Ames, night game, which is great because the atmosphere is fun. Those are fun to go to, and the crowd was into it and all that, and it was a great day of tailgating and all that good stuff. But some of these schools, you're going to have to figure out better logistics on certain things. I know earlier in the season I complained about some of the kind of technology things that have made getting into the stadium and buying things a little bit slowed down. I mean, obviously that'll get all figured out, and it's gotten better. But then the other side of it is when you're traveling somewhere and then you've got another extra hour and a half or 2 hours because we can't figure out how we're going to get people out of these parking lots in some sort of orderly fashion. I was just about ready to lose it on Saturday because we're sitting in this line, and I know there were so many people that were complaining the same thing. And I don't know if it's just a logistical, the nature of how everything's set up and nothing that the law enforcement can do about it type of situation, but it sure seems like there's extra steps that could be taken because, you want to do everything you can to make it fun for people to go and have enjoyable experience, but when you're doing that and making it tougher for people, to get out of there and get home, and especially when some of them are driving a good distance, you're hurting your own product. I'm hoping that a lot of places will figure this out. And like I said, maybe this is just an Ames issue, but I'm guessing there's some other places that have some of the same things, and it just seems like it kind of gets overlooked, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of it I think is a lifestyle thing too. You don't, when you're contemplating going to a game, and you always think about the good parts, like, oh yeah, I want to be in the stadium, feel the atmosphere, all that stuff, and then you start thinking about, like, okay, I got to drive this X amount to get to the game, right? And then
Hmm.
I gotta, parking or whatever costs this much wherever you plan to park, or if you have a certain spot. Then on top of that, you got, if you do a tailgating something, or a lot of places maybe have a entertainment district by the stadium, so then you're gonna probably get you some drinks or get you a dinner, whatever. That's more cost on top of it. And then you go to the game, and then you're all enjoying yourself, having a good time, and then it ends, win or lose either way. Then you're like, crap, now I gotta at least 2 or 3 hours before I can even get out of get home if I'm lucky, depending on obviously how far you travel, and
Hmm.
just estimating here and guesstimating. So a lot of that stuff has probably prevented me from attending some events that I might have gone to maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. But now you're like, well, the kids got a 9 a.m. basketball game on
Hmm.
Sunday. Do I really want to get home at midnight or 1 o'clock? And I don't know if you're like this. I mean, I know I'm kind of like this even after whether it be a game I'm really into, or just a random game or a fight. After I'm get done watching, it's a good 2 or 3 hours where I can just wind down. I'm not just going right to sleep after
Yeah.
a game. I mean, some people can, like, I know, like last night I was a little more pissed off than usual, so it took me a good 2.5 hours just to chill out so I could like relax. Luckily, I caught some of that F1 from Vegas, and I never watched F1, but that was a pretty cool experience. I don't know
Yeah.
if anybody got it, if you got a chance to see it at all, but catch a replay or something. It was a nice setup they had, but I mean, long story short, basically, it's just we think about it's kind of like memories, right? You think of all the
Hmm.
good times, but then you're like, man, there's a lot of shit that goes along with this that I don't really want to do. And then
Yeah.
so you just gotta kind of weigh it out, like
Uh-huh.
what's really better. And then of course, if you win, none of that matters. I don't care. It'd take
Yeah.
me 6 hours to get home. So when it's either a close loss or
That's true.
maybe a blowout type thing, you're like, I don't know why I do this. I don't even know why I come to these damn games. So it
That's
all depends on the day and how things play out. But I'm with you there. I know a lot of stadiums, even here in I've just been to a few, as a random observer with somebody that a friend, or my wife's a Broncos fan. I know you probably won't like to hear that, but
mm,
I've gone to a Chiefs game, of an opposing fan base, and it's hell getting out of there. And people always like, I'm not a Chiefs fan. People think I'm just talking trash about, because Kansas City people, they're very sensitive. I will tell you that. They don't like you talking bad about their Q or their teams, but so I'm unbiased observer. It takes a minute to get out of that
mhm,
stadium, and I even end up going the opposite way because I live north of the stadium. Most people live south or east of the stadium, or west, excuse me. So a lot of the fans are going that way, and I go north, which is the road less traveled, so to speak.
mhm,
And it's still it's hairy getting out of there some nights.
mhm.
So and also, I mean, the $80 parking doesn't exactly make you want to go either. So there's a lot of things. I know it's an NFL deal, but still.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you. I understand. I understand, and I feel your pain. I haven't been in a season or so to a game, so it's maybe not fresh on my mind, but I can definitely feel your pain.
Yeah. Well, obviously it's first world problems.
Yeah, yeah,
I got nothing I should be too upset about. And maybe you're right. Maybe I wasn't in the mood because my team didn't come out on top. But yeah, it's just little things that need to be, I think, looked at and worked on to make experiences better. And part of it is the nature of the setup too. I mean, Ames is kind of similar to Arrowhead, where there's so much parking that's right around the stadium, which makes the atmosphere great. It's cool to be there with that many people. But then yeah, getting them in and out is a tough task, and it doesn't always work the best. But something to keep an eye on, I think, here in the future, because it is so much easier just to say, I'm going to stay home watch. And
Yeah.
it goes back to that media. The access is there, so you can do that.
Yeah, it makes it a little tough too, and for something like this sometimes. I'm like, you want to watch, you want to see what's going on, because
Hmm.
even if it might not be a game we played that week, there's a good chance we'll be on that team the next week or the week after. So you could, just to get a feel for things, kind of keep your eye on some trends. Like like I've talked about before, that the YouTube TV, the split screen
Hmm.
deal is the best thing that's ever happened to me, because I'll get two TVs, I'll get 8 games going at once, and I mean I know it's kind of an ADD overload. I like to watch that way, as long as it's not a team I'm really, zoned in on.
Hmm.
But I know a lot of people, it's kind of distracting. I get that too. But, just keeping up with what's going on is important for this, for this podcast, and just to know what's going on in the game right now.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's dive in here to some picks. I know people have been waiting to get some more money in their pocket because we helped them out last week, so hopefully we'll do it again here. One of them we were going to start off with here, the early week contest. So this will be Tuesday night.
Right around the corner. Let's
Yeah,
go.
Buffalo's laying 6.5 against Eastern Michigan, and I think we both feel pretty confident that the Bulls are going to take care of that business.
Yeah, I know it's early in the week. We don't usually go too hard, but I'm not speaking for you. I'm speaking for myself. Obviously, you can back me up or feel free to deliver your own opinion. But I'm feeling beer on that one too.
Yeah,
I'm
I
pretty
agree.
confident that they're gonna go ahead and take care of business. They've been pretty consistent. Like I said, just with trends and stuff, I feel pretty confident with them covering that.
Yeah, and Eastern Michigan's really struggled. I've watched a couple of the late parts of their games, and they've had a tough time. The week gets busier as we move along down the stretch. There is a game on Thanksgiving, and this is a traditional game on Thanksgiving. The Old Egg Bowl down there in Mississippi. Ole Miss taking on Mississippi State. One team has the coach, the other doesn't. And Ole Miss is laying 12.5, which seems like a big number in a rivalry game, but boy, I would definitely lean towards the Rebels. I don't know what you're thinking there.
Yeah, I'm right. I put down the money line to start, but kind of just thinking about, as we've talked here in the coaching deal, I might go ahead and look at what the odds are going to be later in the week. We're
Hmm.
definitely going to play, at least the money line, probably the number two. I might just double up with you on that number if we get later in the week and it's still a seven or more. I'll go ahead and jump on that with you. Keep an eye on that, but we're definitely. I'm beer confident on them as well. I feel like they're going to take care of business pretty easily.
Yeah,
I just maximize our bucks here early in the week. I'm thinking we can maybe get a good number there later on. Maybe a Tuesday night, Wednesday morning type deal.
yeah, there you go. Lots of games on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. Of course, traditionally has a few, but it seems like there's a lot more this year than is typical. Even the NFL's getting involved because of the whole Amazon deal, so they have a game on Friday too, which I think is unfortunate in my opinion. But
That
we'll
just
stick
reminds me, I
with
need to
college.
cancel my Amazon looking at that game.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, but one of them I'll throw out there for that for Friday. I like Ohio. The Bobcats are laying 13.5 at Akron. Akron has really struggled. Ohio's continued to be pretty consistent here lately. So I'm going to lay, even though it's a large number, I'm still going to lay that. I'll probably stick a little lighter on it, though, go kind of the whiskey glass on that one. But like the Bobcats.
All right, I'm gonna on the same day as well. They were pretty good to us last week, but Missouri, they got Arkansas this week. Not much confidence in what Arkansas can do on the scoreboard. I still think it could be somewhat of a blowout though. So I'm
Mm,
going to take the overs in that game as well.
okay, yeah. Yeah, I like that game too. That's one I'll back you up on. I did see a note a little bit ago. Speaking of firing coaches, that they said Sam Pittman will be back at Arkansas next year, so he's not getting fired. But yeah, Mizzou's looked good, and I think they handled business in
Yeah,
that
I
one.
guess I should have mentioned 55. Sorry,
Oh,
55
okay.
points is what it's sitting at right now. So I might need to cross the border here, and then once we get offline
Get
here,
quick.
get on that now before it jumps up on it, because that seems rather low after
Yeah,
last week. So I'm gonna
I agree.
hop on that
Especially
one
what
just
Mizzou's
fast
been
here.
putting up lately. Yeah.
Exactly.
You have anything else on Friday you wanted to roll with?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna throw a couple at you. I think last week was the actual, I thought, trap game for Texas. I'm not trying to rub any salt in your wounds, and they
Hmm.
got by that one. I do think they'll go ahead and roll Texas Tech. Texas Tech's kind of been a little bit Jekyll and Hyde this year. I mean, it's end of the year, supposedly rival game. I don't know if it's that much of a rival. It's more the fact that it's just the last game they play now. The A&M's in the SEC. So
Hmm.
I'll go ahead and I think Texas can cover that 13.5. And this one, I know I've got a pretty staunch rule. I've mentioned numerous times not betting on my team, but desperate times call for desperate measures. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not right now. I don't like what I'm seeing on the boards. Nebraska and Iowa, it's -1 or +1, obviously either way. Um, Basically, my theory here is we haven't been to a bowl since 2016. That's way too long, especially considering what I've witnessed in my lifetime. So I'm probably gonna go against the home team with hopes of maybe throwing some good karma our way and just kind of getting the football gods to flip the script a little bit. So it's one of those kind of a revenge deal. So I'm probably gonna play some numbers there, and I'm actually gonna take the overs for sure too. 27 is the last I saw. It's gonna hit the over big time. I think it's gonna be one of those crazy wacky games, maybe even a little bit like last year. Someone's gonna get big league and come back late. So I will play that one this week. I'm not once we throw the graphic out later in the week, I'll have the details of the exact play, but that's definitely what I'm going to play. And the overs for sure. Might do a little bit of spread action too as well later in the week. But that's the last two I have for Friday.
Okay. Yeah, that game always seems to be weird for whatever reason. It plays out not like people totally normally think it does. I will say too, by the way, just as a side note about the team itself, getting to see Texas in person was very impressed with parts of that team. I think they've got a ways to go in certain aspects where they can be more efficient and be more consistent, but up front their up front line is pretty solid, especially on the defensive side. I mean, Iowa State had zero luck trying to run the ball against some of those big boys up front, and they did a good job holding that line of scrimmage. So I'll give them credit. They look pretty salty there, and you can see why they would win a game like at Alabama with players like that. So yeah, they're an interesting team to keep an eye on here as we move down the stretch, and they're of course in control of their Big 12 championship destiny there with that game. Moving on to Saturday, I think we're going to throw quite a few here at you. One that I saw that I'm going to go with, even though the situation I think is still a little bit sticky with how the health of the team has been, but Kansas is laying 6.5 at Cincinnati. I think the Jayhawks take care of that. They're obviously disappointed, I'm sure, with coming up short against K-State this last weekend, but played well. They've been, good enough to win most of their games. They've kind of just maybe hurt themselves in a couple of spots, but I think they handled that one. So I'm going to take them on Saturday and laying that 6.5. I'd probably go. I'll just go whiskey on that one, just because there's some others that I like a little bit more than that one.
Yeah, I'll see your whiskey and raise you one here. In the game, I actually like Ohio State. Maybe not as much for on the field reasons. Michigan, I'm sure they're going to say they were looking ahead, but they did not look so great last week. Yesterday, I guess against Maryland, kind of just sleptwalk their way through it. And you can say all you want that we're just looking ahead or play mind games or whatever. Obviously something's off, and without your coach being on the sidelines the last 3 games, especially in this type of game, and not even just that, the distraction of the whole story as just in general from the team, it's got to how hard you try, it's got to be messing with you in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think Ohio State's kind of not expected to win, and I think this might be the one that gets Ryan Day over the hump. And I think Bo Schembechler's an RIP, so Ryan Day might not be calling him out, but I don't know, maybe maybe one of the old Michigan. I think even Lloyd Carr might not be with us anymore, so I can't even say him. But you better watch out. One of those geriatrics days coming for your ass. So you better be ready for this.
If you're a wrinkled Michigan alum, you're on blast this week. Look out. Yeah, I agree. I'm with you on that. I think Ohio State is the more complete team. We just haven't, and part of it too is we haven't seen Michigan have a test that they need to prove that they can do other things. I mean, obviously that win against Penn State, run the ball 23 times in a freaking row. You don't know if J.J. McCarthy can step up and make a big throw when it counts. He hasn't had to do that yet. So I think that Ohio State just a more complete team. With Harrison on the outside, they can do some more things offensively. I'm with you there. I like them to win that game and cover too. Another one I'll jump to. It's another, I guess, traditional Uh, Rivalry game, not as big and attention wise as many others, but they always dislike each other, more so probably on the basketball court. But Louisville is a 7 point favorite against Kentucky. I think Louisville gets that taken care of. Obviously, they played well, beat some decent teams, and I think some of the teams that they beat have maybe been better than Kentucky. So I'm going to go with the Cards on that one. I'll probably stick another whiskey glass on that one.
Next one I have is LSU. We kind of talked about those. Not to mention, on top of that, this season they're 0-3 against top 25 opponents. 10.5, a little bit, bigger than your typical SEC spread, but at the same time, A&M's kind of, you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, I can't imagine them. There's nothing really to, like we talked before, rallying around your coach like UCLA did last week. They don't have anybody to really rally around. I mean, they're playing for pride, I guess you can say that. I just don't. Even if they still had the coach and they were nothing was out of the ordinary and they still weren't looking for somebody new, I still think LSU would win this game handily. And on being that they are now in that situation with not knowing who your head man is, it's going to be even more of a tough day there for the Aggies. I think minus 10.5. I'll go beer on that one too. I know I'm pretty confident in a lot of these, but I just don't see a way that A&M wins this game or even keeps it close.
Yeah, I think that's a good play. Another one that is a traditional big rivalry game, usually is much more anticipated than the one this year. The old Iron Bowl as Alabama takes on Auburn on the road, but they're laying 14.5. But the way that Auburn is been kind of just discombobulated this year, Alabama's going to roll. They've gotten better and better. They're going to take care of business in this game. They're not going to let this be the one that bites them for this season. So I like them to win that, even if it's a big number. I wouldn't be concerned.
Yeah, Auburn's definitely licking their wounds after last week. That was a pretty embarrassing loss they had. So I don't. Yeah, it could be ugly. The last one I have for this week, kind of going back to the well here, not as frequent as I have with the Wyoming Cowboys, but I have like UNLV a few times this year, and I'm gonna go with them again. Interestingly enough, they're 10-1 against the spread this season. So sometimes you gotta just go with what's working, and you gotta stay with a hot hand. Of course, this will be the week that it won't, but that's whatever. I'm gonna go. I trust their that 11 games is a big enough a body of work for me to go ahead and jump on that wagon. So minus 3.5 against San Jose State. I'll go ahead and take the Rebels in that one.
Roll with that sample size. That'll work. By the way, that Bama game, I'd probably even go as far as popping the bottle on that bad boy. I think the Tide are going to roll. So, do you have any others official plays you want to throw out there, or just anything you're else looking at, maybe?
Well, now that I just had to watch this one, but now that the numbers have come out, because luckily pretending that we have games this week, like we talked about before, there's sometimes a delay with some of these books putting their numbers out. I get the whole process, and you don't have to explain to me why, what, when, where, and how, and all that, but it still is annoying, with our schedule. But like I said, it's another story for a different day. But I was looking at the Oregon State because I like the overs, and the number wasn't out yet. It did come out recently, at least from last time I checked, and it was 62. I like the over on that. For someone that's feeling a little bit crazy there, and I don't even think this is that out of sorts, but you maybe want to try to make a little bit more coin on this game. Oregon State's not only getting 14 points, you could see a 13, 10 point, 7 point loss, and you still get some money there, but they're also on, at least on one book, plus 490 to win outright. Now I'm not playing that. However, I don't think that's that wild of a pick, or that's that unforeseen that could happen. They gave Washington all they wanted last week and then some, barely just coming up short. So I could definitely see that I mean, I guess if you want to call it upsets, barely an upset, relatively speaking. But anybody that's interested in that, you're getting a pretty good number on some of the books for the upset. But I'll definitely. I was just having that as a keep an eye on, but now that the number's out, I'll go ahead and make that a play. I'll go beer though. I'm not totally. Usually I like Oregon to pop the bottles when it comes to the overs, but I could see a little bit more defense in this game maybe. So let's go on the over 62 and just, maybe like a 35-30 type game, something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that would not be a wild play at all, I think, to play that type of, when you're always looking for an underdog that maybe is a good team, there you go. You got one right there. A couple other games I would just mention that are probably be fun to keep an eye on. The way that Arizona's been rolling lately, they're laying 13 at Arizona State, and that's something I could see them covering. I was really surprised how well they played this past week. They put it on Utah. That was an impressive win. My boys, West Virginia, I almost wanted to put this as a play, but I might do it by the time the end of the week scrolls around. But they're laying 6.5 on the road at Baylor. So the only thing that worries me is the road. They've been a little bit weary on the road sometimes, so that's a little tougher. But that's one to keep an eye on. And then I also think Washington, keep an eye on them. 16.5 laying against Wazoo. I know that's a bigger number, but two teams have gone in opposite directions as the season has moved along. So I could see Washington putting that one to bed pretty well. But we'll keep a peek on that.
Yeah, one more I might play later in the week. Kind of see how things go. It's Florida is plus 5.5 against Florida State. Obviously, the quarterback injury. As far as it looks like, Florida State's quarterback is probably not going to be playing, right? I mean, no. All indications. So no. Then Florida gave Missouri a pretty good run last night. You know, like you said, the late field goal to pull away there. So might be another underdog pick, but at least that 5.5 is looking pretty good. So probably won't put it on the official plays, but that might be something to keep an eye on, and maybe something we do also for personally there on the side bet.
All right, so that's kind of what we've got on our slate here for you this week. Of course, keep an eye on our socials at Cherokee CP at SJM Bets. They're on Twitter. SJ does a nice job putting out the graphic as well. It kind of gives you a guide of what we've picked here this week and let you follow along as the week goes along. So make sure you're doing that. And, of course, we'll provide links to the program as well. You can, of course, find the podcast on Spotify and then also on the Amazon and Google podcast platforms if you want to share that information with anyone else. Because obviously, if you're hearing me tell you that, then you're listening to it already. So I appreciate you. Lots of choices out there. We're just trying to get in the mix with you, and we appreciate everybody that does that. If you want to interact with us, feel free to shout us out there on social media or respond to some of the polls and stuff that are available through the podcast platform. I know you can give direct feedback there as well. We'd appreciate that if you did, rate the program and share and like and all that good stuff as well. And we'll keep this train rolling along. Obviously, the season's going to change. We'll get into bowl season, but we'll keep trucking along, and then we'll see how we progress it from there. But there's still a lot of fun football to talk about here the rest of the year. So we hope you.
Well, the good thing is there's always something to bet on. So basketball's getting started here in college game, and giving some NBA. There's fights randomly here and there. So there'll always be something to bet on, at least in my world. So we'll figure something out, right?
Yeah, no doubt. So thanks for joining us once again here this week. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next week for some more covers.